In the last section, we created our app test file, and now we're going to work on the actual implementation of this test. So the first thing we need to know what to do is what to actually write inside the file. To give you a better idea of what's going on, let's check out a quick diagram. Okay, so this right here is a diagram of the main construct that we're going to use again and again and again throughout this testing suite. Inside this diagram, I've labeled out a function that we're going to be calling over and over every single time that we want to write out a new test. So we refer to this function as the it function. I personally sometimes call it an it block. Now you're going to find very few other people who call this function the it block. I call that personally because back when I was writing Ruby code in Ruby on Rails, we referred to kind of that testing setup. We called it the it block over there. So you're not going to find a lot of other people in the JavaScript world that refer to this as the it block, but sometimes out of habit, that's what I'm going to call it. The it function is a global function. That means that you and I do not have to require it or import it into our test file. We can just freely call the it function and we're good to go. The it function is used to organize all the different tests that we write inside of a single file. So for each test we write, we will call the it function exactly one time. The arguments to the it function are always going to be the same. The first argument is going to be a string that is a description of the test that you and I are going to write. So this is going to be a string description solely meant to communicate the purpose of the test to ourselves in the future or other developers in the future. This string right here is not used by the testing suite for any behind the scenes testing purpose. All it's there for is for communicating the intent of the test to yourself and other engineers. As a second argument to the it function, we're going to pass in a function that you and I create, and this function is going to contain the actual body or the actual test logic that we want to execute. It's going to contain the code that actually runs whatever we say this thing is going to run or whatever it's actually going to test. So let's flip back over to our app test file and write out our first it block or our first it function. So back over here inside my app test file, I'll write out it. And then as a first argument, I'll provide a string. So again, this string right here is going to be a description of what we're trying to test. So as a quick reminder, what we're trying to test right now around our app component is to just make sure that it shows our comment box. That's going to be the first test we write. So as a description for this, on the very first test, I'm going to say shows a comment box. Now, I want you to take a quick look at this string right here. You'll notice that I didn't write out something like the app or anything like that. I didn't write out it shows the comment box. Whenever we write a description in here, we want to kind of imagine that the it function right here kind of blends into the name or the description that we're providing. And so I would read this test right here as it shows a comment box. When we start thinking about what it is, well, the it is implied to be whatever we named this file. So in this case, we named the file app.test.js. So in total, I would read this statement right here as saying the app component, hey, let me tell you about it. It shows a comment box. And then as the second argument, we'll provide a function that shows that is the case and actually kind of proves that it shows a comment box with some amount of code. So let's place that second argument here. It's going to be a function like so. And then inside this function is where we're going to implement our actual test logic. So let's take a quick pause. We'll come back to the next section and start implementing the test.